Hey everyone, welcome back to Wikos. My name is Luca Ripa and welcome to my new set for reviews. I wanted to spice it up a little bit because sitting down also I felt that I wasn't as entertaining as I could be. And for some reason I found that while I'm standing up, I am more dynamic when I talk. So here we go. So this is the review for Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest Martin Scorsese movie. The story of Killers of the Flower Moon, I mean, you probably know by now because you watched the trailers. A lot of people talk about it. After the Osage discovery of oil in the early 20th century, they become very rich and they become basically the kings of that land in Oklahoma. Suddenly, during the 1930s, they die one by one under mysterious circumstances, and they are actually murdered, by the way. The thing goes on until the FBI steps in to solve the mystery. That story is very interesting overall. However, I am very conflicted about the way it is narrated. So, for example, the story is narrated mostly through Ness Burkhardt, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who is a very uninteresting character. He's a very passive character who has very little personality. He's a veteran who has a very serious injury, even though we're not ever shown that serious injury. We are just told at the beginning, in the very first dialogue between DiCaprio's Ernest and De Niro's King. And we're gonna go back to that dialogue because there's a lot to say about that. He's a very naive character, was just being manipulated constantly, and we're just seeing that over and over again. And although he kind of understands what he's doing, but at the same time he doesn't, so it's a little bit back and forth with that. And we are left to the doubt by the end of the movie whether or not he was super aware and was totally aware of what he was doing. The other thing is that it's kind of a mystery at first, but again, the trailers and the synopsis and all the press kits have you knowing that King is doing all of that. King and his family are doing all of that. So there isn't really mystery, but the first 40 minutes or so, it's kind of treated like that. So the first 40 minutes, it's all about knowing DiCaprio's character, who is, again, basically one-dimensional, and you understand who he is right away from that very first dialogue. And then at a certain point in a scene, King is very open, and we see the film basically already knowing what's going on, being shown what they do, but not really, because it never goes too much in depth of how exactly they're doing. Not that it's important, honestly, but at the same time, the movie is very long. It's 3 hours and a half, and a good hour is about basically poisoning a character and how they're doing it. And yeah, it's heavy seeing the character going through that. However, again, it's an hour basically, or even a 90 minutes worth of narration that it's basically dedicated about that. And at a certain point, I am someone who feels that certain things need to be felt in movies, and we have that in Killers of the Flower Moon. We are shown and we feel a lot of the things that are happening. However, there should be a balance because we overfeel. They felt like you are overshowing this. It is all happening through, again, DiCaprio's perspective, who, again, is not that interesting of a character. Therefore, we are seeing what is essentially an idiot doing what he's doing. And there is this contrast that, in a way, is very interesting, which is an idiot committing this atrocity. But again, he's so uninteresting that it becomes almost tedious watching this unfold. Again, it's a very interesting story. It's a movie that people should watch because it's a glimpse about what the white people did to the Native Americans. But because of the length, I felt that 3 hours and a half were too much for this movie. I mean, and I am someone that, as a filmmaker myself, says that a running time is never too long, is never too short. It depends on the story. However, the justification that Scorsese is using is that people are used to watch 7 hours on TV at home, what's about 3 hours and a half in the movie theater. Well, I watched it in Italy, and I went to a theater which I knew that still plays intermissions because I want an intermission if I watch a 3 hour and a half movie, because maybe I need to go to the bathroom, because again, 3.5 hours, it's 3.5 hours. And it begs the question whether or not this film should have been a limited series. And I know this sounds like blasphemy. How can you say it about a Scorsese film? I feel like a limited series would have went way more in depth about what was happening, and maybe would have told it in a way more interesting. Like 7 episodes of 1 hour would have let Scorsese go in depth to every single thing and not just focusing on Ernest and his relationship with King and his wife. You remember I was talking about the first dialogue in the movie between King and Ernest. The old dialogue, it's too over the shoulders to cut together. That's the coverage. And for that dialogue, it's kind of okay because it basically establishes the two characters, but most dialogues are like that. And in general, I read a lot of reviews of Priest the filmmaking. There are some really great shots, there is some really good filmmaking here, but the dialogues, man, they are mostly over the shoulders and very basic coverage throughout the film. The set pieces, there aren't many, but there are a couple where, wow, and especially the beginning, the opening sequence, it's incredible. It doesn't really say much in terms of the story, it gives you the historical context, but it's incredible. The scene in the courtroom where we're basically presented for the first time Brendan Fraser's character is very powerful and overwhelming, like it should be because it's overwhelming to Ernest. But again, the dialogues most of the time are pretty much basic, and the whole film is very static in terms of cinematography. There are some dolly movements and some dynamic moments, but essentially when it comes to dialogue, it's all very static, and the interesting shots in dialogues are mostly when Scorsese stays on the master shot. That was really interesting. Anyways, enough with the filmmaking. You understand that I wasn't really a fan of it. Let's talk about the cast. DiCaprio, again, an interesting character, but he was really good. The face, he gives the face like this for a lot of time. I don't know, it's very noticeable maybe. It's distracting at times. I think it's supposed to represent the effect of war had on him. De Niro plays King, who is a very ruthless character, and he does a great job. However, the scene is completely stolen by Lily Gladstone, who plays Ernest's wife, Molly, who is the part of the richest Osage family in Oklahoma. She lights up the screen, and that's something that I agree with everyone when they talk about this movie, is that she's the highlight of it. I think that she is a very strong contender for actress in a leading role at next year's Oscar. Rodrigo Prieto's work here, I really felt that it wasn't his best work, honestly. The soundtrack was done by Robbie Robertson, who does a fantastic job. He's a long-time collaborator of Scorsese. Unfortunately, he died back in August, so this is his last work. Honestly, this adds another great piece to his legacy as a music composer. Overall, how much I score Killers of the Flower Moon? Again, I said before that you would be surprised about. I made considerations that a lot of you will think overly negative about it, but again, it's not a bad movie. For me, I think it was too long, and I think that it wasn't the right format for the story. However, again, it's a great movie. The mise-en-scene is basically flawless. I mean, it's perfection. We are at one of the best levels in movie history here. I scored Killers of the Flower Moon an 8.5 out of 10. It's not my favorite movie, but it's a very powerful story. I understand the atrocity that white people committed to the Osage. Anyways, this was my review for Killers of the Flower Moon. Did you watch it? If you like the video, be sure to leave a like. If you dislike the video, leave a dislike, but also comment and let's argue about it. I love discussing movies, so I look forward to people write me about it. Be sure also to follow Weekos on all social media. We are on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. And we cover a lot of topics, not just movies, but also TV shows, video games, board games, books, anime, and manga. And also on Halloween, we are releasing our first narrative original content. You don't need to understand any of this. A romantic short film directed by me, Luca Ripamonti, but also you know me as Luke Ripa, and that is my nickname. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time on Weekos.